On my first day of school, the icy cold female CEO angrily cornered me against the wall, then tossed a cute little toddler at me. "You take care of your own daughter." Looking at the little girl who looked strikingly like me, I was instantly stunned. Wait, my Barrett hasn't even been unboxed yet. Where did this daughter come from? What I didn't know was that this adorable kid really was my daughter, and she traveled back from the future. This all started a few days ago. A tiny toddler suddenly skipped into the Shen Corporation lobby and wrapped her arms around Shen Mengxi's leg, shouting, "Mommy!" Everyone present froze in shock. Did that little kid just call CEO Shen mommy? Ms. Shen was the heiress of the prestigious Shen family in Haicheng. And more importantly, the workaholic CEO who never took a single day off all year round somehow had a child. Shen Mengxi quickly snapped out of it and gently pulled the toddler away. She crouched down halfway and her icy demeanor instantly softened. With a gentle smile, she asked sweetly, "Little one, you can't just call anyone mommy. If you miss your mom, I'll have my assistant take you to find her, okay?" Hearing this, her assistant behind her widened his eyes in disbelief. "Where did my Ice Queen CEO go?" The toddler tilted her head, her voice soft and sweet. "Mommy? Why won't you let Nai call you mommy?" As soon as she finished speaking, Nai's fair little face was filled with confusion. She couldn't understand why mommy wouldn't let her say mommy. Did mommy not want Nai anymore? Thinking this, her lips trembled. Looking utterly heartbroken, Shen Mengxi felt completely helpless. But for some reason, seeing this little girl so upset made her heart ache too. It was a strange feeling. But one thing was certain, she absolutely couldn't have a child. Because in her entire 26 years of life, she'd never been in a relationship. Although she knew plenty of wealthy heirs, she found them all beneath her. But this little girl really did look exactly like her childhood self. Like they were molded from the same cast, and the moment she saw this toddler, she felt an inexplicable connection. "Mommy, are you going to abandon Nai?" Seeing Shen Mengxi stay silent, Nai looked up at her with tearful eyes, looking pitiful. Extremely endearing, Shen Mengxi, seeing her so miserable, felt her heart clench and instinctively tried to comfort her. "Nai, I'm really not your mom." Before she could finish, Nai burst into tears. "Mommy doesn't want Nai. Nai wants Daddy to spank Mommy tonight." Hearing this, Shen Mengxi chuckled lightly, about to say something, when her assistant interrupted. "Ms. Shen, your speech at Haicheng University starts in half an hour. We'll be late if we don't leave now." Hearing this, Shen Mengxi sighed softly, stood up and looked at the four receptionists. Coldly ordered, "Keep an eye on Nai. If her parents don't show up, call the police." After giving instructions, Shen Mengxi glanced at Nai, still crying loudly, feeling deeply unsettled. But she didn't hesitate and quickly walked out. Seeing Mommy leave, Nai's crying grew louder. She turned slightly, watching Mommy's retreating figure with watery eyes, sniffled her little face full of Wei-Q. Shen Mengxi, sensing the gaze behind her, felt inexplicably distressed. Just as she was about to exit the building, she abruptly stopped. Under her assistant's confused look, she turned around, quickly walked toward Nai, calling softly, "Nai, come here to Mommy." The moment the words left her mouth, everyone around was dumbfounded, staring at Shen Mengxi in disbelief. Shen Mengxi herself was stunned too. The words had slipped out unconsciously, without any thought, but she didn't explain anything. Hearing her, Nai wiped her tears, ran quickly to Shen Mengxi, who bent down and picked her up immediately. Looking at the pitiful little face in her arms, she smiled gently. Almost unconsciously, she pinched the toddler's cheek. Nai pouted, huffed softly, and turned her head away, looking adorably upset, clearly expecting to be coaxed. Shen Mengxi's eyes crinkled as she reached out with her slender finger to tickle Nai's chin. Nai tucked her neck in, pouting as she buried her face in Shen Mengxi's neck. Shen Mengxi felt no discomfort at all. In fact, she enjoyed cuddling this little one, which surprised even herself. Shen Mengxi sat in the back seat holding Nai. Her assistant closed the door, then got in the front passenger seat. Shen Mengxi gently wiped Nai's tears, asking softly, "Nai, why did you come looking for Mommy and Daddy alone?" Nai shook her little head. In a babyish voice, "I don't know either. I was just here when I stepped outside." Hearing this, Shen Mengxi fell silent. She looked up at her assistant in the front seat, who instantly felt a chill down his spine. He quickly handed over his tablet, saying, "Ms. Shen, I just checked the security footage. This child seemed to appear out of thin air." Shen Mengxi took the tablet, quickly watched the entire sequence and confirmed what her assistant said. Nai truly seemed to materialize out of nowhere, appearing in the lobby the next second. The word time travel flashed through her mind, though it seemed unrealistic. That natural sense of closeness upon meeting Nai felt undeniably real, making her frown slightly before she could speak. Nai reached up with her chubby little hand to smooth her furrowed brow. Shen Mengxi stared at the toddler, stunned for a long moment, unable to speak. Nai looked back at Mommy, seeing no reaction, tilted her head, puzzled. "Why won't Mommy kiss Nai? Daddy always does this, and Mommy kisses him nonstop." Saying this, she planted a loud kiss on Shen Mengxi's cheek. The assistant in front heard this, covered his mouth, trying not to laugh, never imagining Ms. Shen had this girlish side. Wait, what if Ms. Shen decides to silence me permanently? Thinking this, he shivered involuntarily. Wishing he could be deaf right now, Shen Mengxi was equally shocked. That she'd have such a lovesick side, she instantly dismissed the thought. Clearly, she didn't believe it. After all, she'd never prioritized family bonds. You could even say she was emotionally detached. She believed even if she had a husband and child. Nothing would change, though, thinking this. She couldn't help but feel curious about the Daddy Nai mentioned, clearing her chaotic thoughts. She ordered find out if Nai is their love child. She found time travel less plausible than Nai being their secret child, but looking at the toddler in her arms, she strangely didn't want to believe Nai was their love child. After some thought, she instructed, "First, go to the hospital," just as her assistant looked confused. Shen Mengxi added assistant Shen notified Dr. Zheng to arrange a paternity test. Postpone the Haicheng University speech by 15 minutes. Hearing this, assistant Chen's eyes widened in utter disbelief. Before he could react, Shen Mengxi looked up and asked, "Do I need to repeat myself?" Assistant Chen snapped back to reality, shaking his head, "No, Ms. Shen, I'll arrange it right away." Shen Mengxi gave a slight nod, then looked down at the toddler in her arms, asking gently, "What's Nai's full name and how old are you?" "Mu Xiao Nai, Mu as in admire, Xiao as in little, Nai as in endure Nai." Nai replied with a smile, holding up 6 fingers. Nai is 4 years old. Shen Mengxi laughed softly, her eyes filled with affection. She gently touched Nai's forehead, then asked, "Does Nai know Mommy and Daddy's names?" Of course, Nai knows Daddy is called Brother Mu. Mommy is Shen Mengxi, when mentioning her parents. Nai's face lit up with clear dependence and joy, showing how cherished she was by her parents. This sparked a flicker of envy in Shen Mengxi's eyes, something she'd never experienced. But almost instantly, she buried that emotion deep inside. Brother Mu, Shen Mengxi murmured softly. The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. But she was certain she didn't know this man. She turned to Assistant Chen, ordering Chen look up men named Mu Gi. Around 20 years or older, send their photos to my phone. Yes, Miss Chen, Assistant Chen replied promptly. Shen Mengxi was genuinely curious what kind of man could possibly win her over. Thinking this, she suddenly recalled Nai Nai's earlier comment about him spanking her. Could he be abusive? No, even with her questionable taste. She'd never date an abuser thinking this. She swallowed nervously. Mommy, when will we find Daddy? Nai Nai nuzzled Shen Mengxi's cheek. Her voice soft and sweet. Shen Mengxi nodded with a smile, but didn't answer immediately. After thinking, she said, Mommy can take you to find Daddy, but Mommy has a few questions for Nai Nai. Nai Nai must promise not to lie, okay? Nai Nai nodded eagerly like a little chick pecking rice. Shen Mengxi cleared her throat, her voice betraying nervousness she didn't realize she had. Nai Nai, does Daddy hit Mommy often? Asking this, her heart pounded unexpectedly. Nai Nai nodded cutely without hesitation. In her babyish voice, Daddy hits Mommy every night. Hits her so hard Mommy yelps sometimes. Mommy even gives Nai Nai to Grandma to find Daddy for more spanking before she could continue. Shen Mengxi quickly covered her little mouth, finally understanding why it happened at night. Her cheeks flushed slightly just then. Assistant Shu in front hastily pulled up the partition. The next second it lowered slightly as a voice said, Miss Shen, we didn't hear anything. The partition snapped shut immediately. Shen Mengxi coughed awkwardly, flustered, quickly changing the subject. Nai Nai, do Mommy and Daddy get along well? Mommy and Daddy get along super well. They just argue sometimes, but Mommy always makes Daddy kneel on the floorboard. Just like Grandma makes Grandpa kneel on the floorboard. Hearing this, Shen Mengxi burst out laughing. Apparently, she'd have serious power in her future marriage for some reason. She suddenly wanted to meet her future husband without realizing it. She'd quietly accepted the idea that Nai Nai was her future daughter. Soon the car pulled up slowly at the hospital entrance. They headed straight to the paternity testing center, moments later arriving at the lab. Dr. Zhang had everything ready when she saw Shen Mengxi holding a little girl. She was completely stunned before she could speak. Shen Mengxi spoke first. Dr. Zhang, please run a paternity test between me and this little girl. Expedite it, I need results this afternoon. Dr. Zhang blinked, then quickly recovered. Nodding yes, of course. Shen Mengxi didn't linger, turning to leave immediately. Heading straight to Haicheng University, meanwhile. In Haicheng University's auditorium, Yang Wei threw his arm around me, excitedly saying, Hey, Muge got some great news for you. They say the new student orientation invited CEO Shen to attend. I replied casually. Is CEO Shen really that impressive? Yang Wei rolled his eyes at me. You're totally out of touch. It's normal you wouldn't know, let me tell you. The Shen family tops all the elite families in Haicheng, and most importantly, Shen Mengxi is stunningly beautiful. Haicheng's most famous beauty and only 26 years old. Forget it. There are tons of so-called stunners online. How many are actually real? This is probably fake too. If she's not ugly, that's already good enough. If she's truly breathtakingly beautiful like you say, then I must have been raised on gas fumes. Yang Wei scoffed. Giving up on the topic, he pulled an envelope from his pocket and handed it to me. Flashing a suggestive grin, I looked at the envelope Yang Wei offered. My face contorted, I tightened up instinctively, quietly shifting away while zipping my pants higher. I advised Yang Wei, look, I know I'm irresistible, but we can't be together. Yang Wei froze. Dude, what are you thinking? This is from class rep Zhang Yingying for you. Hearing this, I breathed a sigh of relief and cursed. You jerk, just deliver the letter. Why give me that creepy grin? Don't you know that's terrifying? I snatched the envelope. Without even looking, crumpled it and stuffed it in my pocket. Yang Wei looked speechless, seeing my reaction. His eyes full of confusion, he asked, Mugu, it's college now. Aren't you gonna find a girlfriend? Isn't even our gorgeous class rep enough to win your heart? Before I could respond, the auditorium suddenly stirred. A breathtakingly beautiful woman holding a toddler stood at the entrance. If I could marry her, I'd happily live in a villa, drive a luxury car. Yang Wei rolled his eyes at me, annoyed, saying, Dude, so you're not willing to lift a finger, huh? I chuckled lightly. Looking away, I said, just kidding. Just daydreaming right then. My phone buzzed twice, checking it. I saw a message from Zhang Yingying, asking to meet up. I sighed softly. Got up to sneak out. Yang Wei beside me asked curiously, where to go cut off a hopeless romance? I replied casually just as I was sneaking toward the back exit. A pair of eyes locked onto me. Mommy, it's Daddy. Right as I was sneaking toward the back door, trying to slip out, a pair of eyes locked onto me. Mommy, it's Daddy, Nai Nai shouted at the top of her lungs toward my retreating figure. Shen Mengxi had just finished chatting with the school administrators and was about to head out. When she heard that, she immediately followed Nai Nai's gaze and caught a glimpse of a good-looking figure disappearing through the back door. She gave her assistant a quick look and then walked briskly out of the broadcast hall. Nai Nai, are you sure you've got the right person? And Shen Mengxi held her and picked up the pace. Nai Nai had no doubt on her face and said, that's Daddy. Nai Nai never gets it wrong. And Shen Mengxi turned to her assistant Chen beside her. Have someone pull up everything on a student named Muge right now and send me a photo the second you have it. Assistant Chen nodded and immediately got on his phone to make it happen. Meanwhile, I had no idea anyone was behind me and just followed Zhang Yingying's message into the cherry blossom grove. From a distance, I could already see Zhang Yingying standing there in her white JK uniform, looking pretty with a light touch of makeup. But honestly, none of it stirred anything in me, and I was about to open my mouth to let her down easy, when Zhang Yingying spoke first and said, Muge, I like you. I've had feelings for you since high school. And right at that moment, Shen Mengxi walked up carrying Nai Nai, just close enough to catch every word of that, and for some reason she couldn't explain. Something strange stirred inside her, and her brow furrowed without her even realizing it. Nai Nai looked over at Daddy in the distance, then looked up at Mommy holding her. At 4 years old, she wasn't great at reading the room, but she could tell Mommy was not happy. She didn't know exactly why, but it was definitely Daddy's fault. She thought about it for a second, and then announced in that bright little voice of hers, Mommy, don't be mad. We'll make Daddy kneel on the washboard tonight. And I felt it out of nowhere. A sudden chill run down my spine and a vague uneasy feeling settle in, but I didn't think too much of it and shook it off. I was just about to say something to turn her down when Zhang Yingying seemed to sense it coming, and didn't give me a single second to speak before she turned and walked away quickly. I let out a sigh and turned to leave myself. Shen Mengxi let the smallest cold smile cross her lips and carried Nai Nai out toward the school gate. She had only taken a few steps when it hit her. She wasn't even officially his girlfriend yet, so what business did she have feeling jealous? And even though she thought it through, There was still this unexplainable ache sitting in her chest like someone had snatched away something she treasured. Mommy, aren't we going to find Daddy? And Nai watched Daddy walking off in the other direction and couldn't help asking, and Shen Mengshi affectionately tapped Nai's little nose. Be good, Nai, can we go find Daddy tonight instead? Nai nodded without a second thought, and right then Assistant Chen held out a phone. President Shen, there is only one student named Muj in the whole school, and he is a freshman. Also, the top college entrance exam scorer in Haicheng, and Shen Mengshi took the phone. It had a photo of me playing basketball, and the guy in the picture had deep-set features. Sharp brows, bright eyes, genuinely good-looking, but just a little bit clueless looking, especially in those eyes which were practically radiating that classic college kid naivety. That made her lips curve just slightly, and she held the phone out in front of Nai and asked, Nai, is this a picture of Daddy? And Nai nodded her little head happily. She recognized the man in the photo as Daddy right away, and Shen Mengshi's mouth curled up a bit more. No wonder that photo was taken on the sly. Looks like this little guy has quite the effect on people. Go pull his full background, everything you can find, and not long after, Shen Mengshi took Nai back to her Ocean View penthouse, and little Nai kicked off her shoes and socks, and padded barefoot across the floor, beelining straight for the kitchen like she owned the place. Grabbed a yogurt from the fridge, then trotted back to the living room, flipped on the TV, and plopped herself down on the couch all in one smooth motion. Not a hint of awkwardness, acting completely at home. Shen Mengshi blinked from the entryway, and at this point she was fully convinced this little one was her daughter. She smiled, watching the tiny kid make herself comfortable, and felt a deep warmth settle in her chest. Then she went to the kitchen and boiled a big bowl of plain noodles with a drizzle of sesame oil, and carried it out, calling Nai, dinner's ready. Nai came running to the table and sat herself down in her chair like a good girl. Shen Mengshi looked at the adorable little face in front of her, and her smile got even bigger. She scooped some noodles into a bowl and set it in front of Nai. Little Nai looked at the bowl and her smile stayed perfectly fixed. Then she pushed the bowl back toward Mommy and said, Mommy, you eat, Nai isn't hungry. And right on cue, her little tummy let out a loud rumble, and there was a moment of pure awkward silence. Nai giggled and picked up the spoon and took a bite of the noodles anyway. She chewed with some difficulty but still managed to look up and say, Mommy's noodles are so yummy, and Shen Mengshi listened to Nai's over-the-top flattery and laughed helplessly. Sure, her cooking was nothing special, but it wasn't that hard to get down either. But she only got one bite in before those noodles ended up in the trash. She had clearly overestimated her own skills, and had no choice but to text Assistant Chen, and ask him to bring 2 proper meals over because she wasn't about to let this little one go hungry. A short while later, Assistant Chen arrived with 2 takeout boxes. Nai must have been starving because she dug in immediately, both cheeks stuffed and puffed out, and Shen Mengshi felt a mix of amusement and tenderness watching her. Assistant Chen held up his tablet to give a report and said, President Shen, here is Mr. Mu's complete file, and Shen Mengshi glanced over at the tablet. Muj, 18 years old, father Murong Hao, mother Fu Yanjie, older sister Mu Yulu, and when she saw Fu Yanjie's photo, her expression went blank because she knew Fu Yanjie very well. She had been her homeroom teacher all 3 years of high school. No wonder the name Mug felt so familiar. Hold on, that meant she was going to marry her own teacher's son someday. The moment that thought landed, she felt a little dizzy. She vaguely remembered that back in 10th grade she had even looked after his son for a day due to some situation. While she was still trying to process all of this, Nai pointed at the photo on the tablet and said excitedly, Mommy, it's Grandpa and Grandma, but they look so young in this picture. Shen Mengshi smiled and patted her on the head and said, Good girl, Nai. How about in a little while Mommy and Daddy take Nai to go visit Grandpa and Grandma? Just then her phone buzzed with a notification. Assistant Chen looked at his tablet and said, President Shen, the paternity test results just came back. Shen Mengshi took it and glanced at it, and it said mother-daughter confirmed. 99.99%, and she was not the least bit surprised. If anything, she felt a quiet happiness about it because she was going to have this adorable little thing in the future. Then she turned to Assistant Chen and said, Tell the people at the company to hold off on any major moves for now. Understood, President Shen, and also, President Shen about this afternoon's meeting. And before he could finish, Shen Mengshi cut him off and said push it back and reschedule. Assistant Chen nodded without hesitation, and right then Nai patted her round little belly. Mommy, I'm full now, when are we going to find Daddy? Shen Mengshi went quiet for a moment, and a conflicted look crossed her face. This was genuinely a tricky situation because if it were any other guy, she might not have overthought it, but Muj was her teacher's son, and he was only 18 right now, and on top of that, she had held him as a baby and had seen him running around without his diaper on. How was she supposed to walk up to him and say, I'm your future wife and you're my husband, and here's your daughter? That was way too embarrassing. There was just no way she could say it out loud, and Mommy little Nai pecked her on the cheek, and whined in that soft pouty voice of hers, and Shen Mengshi took one look at those big pitiful eyes and caved, nodded and said fine, let's go find Daddy right now, and Nai clapped her little hands with excitement, eyes absolutely sparkling, and the 3 of them were soon in the car heading to an apartment complex not far from the university. Found building 6 unit 2, and took the elevator up to 606. Standing outside the door, Shen Mengshi felt her nerves suddenly waver, but before she could even think it through, Nai had already raised her little fist and knocked, and hollered Daddy at the top of her lungs, and Shen Mengshi shook her head with a smile. She was going to have to face this sooner or later, because he was going to be Nai's dad. I opened the door with bedhead hair and half-open eyes still half asleep. A flicker of mild disgust crossed Shen Mengshi's face, but she looked me over quickly anyway, and she had to admit this guy was actually pretty good looking, even better in person than in the photo. Little Nai saw me and immediately stretched out her little arms, calling Daddy sweetly. I rubbed my eyes and they went wide. It was Shen Mengshi, CEO of the Shen Group, and I blinked a couple of times, my face full of shock, but then I pieced it together and muttered to myself, this has to be a dream. There is no way the CEO of Shen Group is standing at my apartment door. I'm going back to bed, and without giving them a chance to respond, I shut the door right in their faces, and Shen Mengshi stared at the closed door feeling genuinely annoyed. How did this clueless little guy manage to sweep her off her feet and get her to willingly have his kid? Well, fine then. She gritted her teeth because as CEO no one had ever had the nerve to shut a door in her face. Shen Mengshi handed Nai to Assistant Chen and said, Nai, Mommy needs to have a private chat with Daddy, so no eavesdropping, okay? And Nai immediately clamped both hands over her ears and announced loudly, Mommy, Nai absolutely will not eavesdrop, and a smile spread across Shen Mengshi's face. She rolled her shoulders to loosen up because she had trained in Sanda and Muay Thai, and busting open a door was honestly no big deal, and the next second she drew her leg back and kicked. There was a thunderous bang and the door flew right off. I heard the crash and spun around to see this woman had just kicked my front door clean off the hinges. Shen Mengshi pulled her leg back and casually dusted off her hands, then looked at me like I was something she'd found on the bottom of her shoe, and I met that look. And somehow it kind of did it for me, which made no sense at all. Since when did I have a thing for this? And this was definitely not the time to be figuring that out. "That's my front door!" I shouted in pure horror. Shen Mengshi didn't even blink, and walked right in. Assistant Chen scrambled to follow, practically tripping over himself to keep up. I backed up a few steps as they walked in, and stuttered out, "Hey, what do you think you're doing? This is breaking and entering. I will call the cops." Shen Mengshi looked completely unbothered, and swept me with a cold glance. I saw he wasn't scared at all, so I let out a scoff. "You raise a dog for a rainy day, Nilong, get him." Nilong heard the command and immediately bared his teeth at Shen Mengshi. Before I could even feel smug about it, Shen Mengshi just gave my dopey dog a single sideways glance. Nilong froze like a mouse that just spotted a cat, tucked his tail and shrank against the wall. I looked at Nilong cowering in the corner, walked over and gave him a kick in the butt. Muttered, "All that size and absolutely useless." Then I turned back to Shen Mengshi, before I could even open my mouth. She spoke first. "Can we have a proper conversation now?" I looked at my front door lying flat on the ground, and went quiet, but self-preservation kicked in fast. I started nodding like crazy, afraid to hesitate. Shen Mengshi saw that and let a small smile cross her face, then walked over and sat down on the living room couch. Assistant Chen sat beside her holding little Nai, and noticed I was still standing there like an idiot. She raised an eyebrow, tone flat. "Are you planning to have this conversation standing up?" I let out an awkward laugh, and stiffly walked over to sit on the other couch. Shen Mengshi glanced away at the same time, and caught sight of Nilong still sulking in the corner. The second he felt her eyes on him, he dropped his head even lower, tail tucked. He tiptoed carefully toward the balcony, climbed into his crate, and then actually shut the door behind him. Shen Mengshi looked over at little Nai in Assistant Chen's arms, and her face instantly softened into the warmest smile. "Say hi to Daddy!" I stared at this completely different version of Shen Mengshi, and my jaw almost dropped. This woman switches up that fast. If I ever married her, she'd have me trained like a toddler. Before I could even finish that thought, Nai lowered the little hands covering her ears, and looked right at me. Her voice the sweetest thing I'd ever heard. "Daddy!" I blinked, looked over at this tiny little thing, then pointed at myself, and said with a laugh, "Sweetie, I think you've got the wrong guy. How could your big brother possibly be your daddy?" That's what I said out loud. But inside, I was genuinely touched. More than touched. There was something almost overwhelming about it. This urge to just scoop her up into my arms. Nai heard that, and her whole face crumpled. She looked up at Shen Mengshi, and said in a small, hurt voice, "Mommy!" Does Daddy not want Nai anymore? She remembered Daddy wasn't like this before. Daddy used to love Nai so much. Does he not want her now? Shen Mengshi saw Nai on the verge of tears, and her heart immediately clenched. She cupped Nai's little face in her hands, and said gently, "Of course not. Nai is so precious. How could Daddy ever not want you? Daddy's just playing a little game with you right now, really." Nai looked uncertain. Shen Mengshi nodded with total conviction. "Absolutely." And I was sitting there watching this tiny little girl, feeling something heavy and strange settle in my chest. It came out of nowhere, and left me not quite knowing what to do with myself. Shen Mengshi tapped Nai's little nose, then looked up at me. I met her eyes, and felt a chill run down my spine, like a very specific kind of danger was radiating off her. It made me deeply uncomfortable. I said, "Hey, this is a civilized society. Just because you're from some rich family doesn't mean you can push regular people around." Shen Mengshi rested her chin in her hand, fighting the urge to deck this man. She took a slow, deep breath, and told herself, "Do not lay a hand on him. He's going to be your husband someday. Hold it together." She swallowed the fire, exhaled, and said, Nai is our daughter from the future. I know you probably don't believe that, but it's the truth." As she said it, she pulled out her phone and opened a saved video, and held it up in front of me. It was the security footage from this morning, of Nai appearing out of thin air in the lobby of her company. I watched Nai materialize from nowhere in the Shen Corp lobby. My face went slack with shock, but I recovered pretty quickly. What if the footage was edited? Before I could say anything, Shen Mengshi had already read my mind. She glanced over at her assistant, and Assistant Chen got the hint immediately. He pulled 2 documents out of his bag and laid them on the table. One was clearly a paternity test. The other was a medical report. She continued, "The footage is real. I have no reason to lie to you. This is the paternity test between me and Nai, and this is my medical checkup from last month. I have no history of sexual activity, and no record of giving birth." It clicked pretty fast. My family had some money, sure, but nothing close to the Shen family's level. This woman genuinely had no reason to be running some scheme on me. So this little girl, she really was my daughter, or more precisely, she was going to be my daughter in the future. Shen Mengshi saw me go quiet, figured I still didn't believe her. So she kept going. "If you don't believe me, we can go do the paternity test ourselves. And if you don't want to claim the child, I can raise her on my own." Before she even finished, I cut her off sharply. "Who said I don't want her? She's my daughter. Nai." I looked over at the little girl, cleared my throat, and said softly, Nai, come here." Nai heard that, hopped right off the couch, and launched herself straight into my arms, eyes full of pure joy. I caught her and held her close. Looking down at this tiny little girl in my arms, my heart completely melted. Daddy's bad. Nai wants a kiss. Before I could even say anything, Nai puffed out her cheeks and pouted at me. I didn't even think about it, just leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. How do I even describe it? It felt like nothing else. I woke up this morning and somehow I'm a dad now. Shen Mengshi watched the two of them together, and felt a small, inexplicable irritation bubble up inside her. She caught herself feeling it. and was genuinely surprised at herself. She shook her head and said, "We should head to the clinic and get the paternity test done." Wallow thought for a moment and added, "Don't worry, the test is on me." I let out a little scoff at that and said with full swagger, "No need, I've got money." Then I pulled out my phone and opened my payment app. Balance $20.90, and right at that moment a notification popped up. "Dear messy little dog, your music streaming subscription has expired. Your account has been automatically renewed. Amount deducted, $14.90. I stared at that notification and felt the sky cave in on me. School just started and I'm already broke. At that point, Assistant Chen helpfully chimed in, "Sir, a standard paternity test runs between $200 and $250. Your current balance doesn't appear to quite cover that." I sat in awkward silence for a moment, then quietly stepped away to call my mom, making my way toward the balcony with as much dignity as I could manage. The call connected fast, and before she could even say hello, I launched right in, "Mom, your little money pit is calling. You were born to drain me dry." My mom. Fu Yanji's voice came through already irritated. I ignored the tone completely and said with zero shame, "Well then get ready to be a grandma." Dead silence on the other end for a solid few seconds. I handed the phone to Nai while she was still processing. Nai took the phone with both hands, absolutely delighted, and said in the sweetest voice, "Grandma?" Fu Yanji was about to unload on me, then heard a tiny child's voice instead. She rolled her eyes and said flatly, "Don't try to pull something on me. Go play somewhere else." As for what I said, Fu Yanji clearly didn't believe a word of it and hung up. But she still transferred $200 because she knew her son pretty well. Sure, he burned through money fast, but it was always stuff like games, sneakers, that kind of thing. Nothing she lost sleep over. She asked out of pure habit. Not for a second did she actually think this kid had the nerve to produce a grandchild. "Daddy." Grandma hung up. Then I looked at the screen, then looked up at me, and the second the words left her mouth, a WeChat money transfer notification chimed. I grinned and pinched her little nose. Good girl. Then I took the phone back, set Nai down and said, Nai, go hang out with mommy for a bit. Later Daddy will make you something really good to eat, okay?" Nai's eyes lit up the second she heard Daddy was cooking. She nodded enthusiastically, then planted a big kiss right on my cheek and announced cheerfully, "Deal. Love you, Daddy." Then she bolted into the living room and threw herself straight into Shen Mengshi's arms. I didn't follow right away. Instead, I called my old man. The phone rang for a long time. Just when I was about to hang up, it finally connected. I went straight to the point. "Dad, I need some coins, you little punk. Doesn't your mother control all the money in this house? Why are you coming to me?" Mu Ronghao said with zero patience. "Fine then. Guess I'll just have to let Mom know you've been stashing secret cash." Before I could finish, Mu Ronghao laughed and cut me off. "My boy, we're family. Everything's negotiable. How much do you need?" The last 3 words came out through what was clearly gritted teeth. I didn't care at all, and said with a grin, $200 bucks. Are you out of your mind? Your mom only gives me 20 a week. You want me to bleed for you." Before he could keep going, I cut in. "How would Mom feel if she found out you've been pocketing my Lunar New Year money every year?" "Oh, son, 200 isn't enough. Make it 250. You're in college now. Treat yourself. Spend the money. Stop trying to save your old man a buck." He hung up immediately after that, transferred 250 to his ungrateful son through tears of rage. A few minutes passed, and the notification chimed again. I accepted it with full satisfaction. Under 10 minutes, $450. Pure profit. Shen Mengshi in the living room watched the whole thing with an expression she couldn't quite put into words. The balcony walls were paper thin, and Nai hadn't shut the door when she came out, so she'd heard every word of both phone calls. I strolled back into the living room and waved my phone. "All right, let's go." Shen Mengshi's brow furrowed slightly. She looked me up and down. "You're going out like that?" I ran a hand through my absolute disaster of a bedhead, and looked down at what I was wearing, and let out an embarrassed laugh. "Give me 15 minutes. By the car, I let go of her hand and pulled open the back door. I looked over at Mia and gestured for her to get in, but Mia just stood there for a second. A flicker of disappointment crossed her face. She quickly pulled herself together, though, and got in without a word. I climbed in right after her. Nana rested her little head on Mia's lap. Her short little legs draped over mine, a big, happy smile on her face. Mia couldn't help but boop her nose, which set Nana off into a fit of giggles. Watching that little scene, I had this strange feeling, like everything was just perfectly right with the world. I glanced over at Mia, and couldn't help but say something. "It seemed like you knew my sister just now." Mia answered in her usual calm tone and nodded. She arranged my checkup last month. It all clicked into place for me. No wonder my sister had such a big reaction when she saw me and Mia. Walking into that paternity testing center together with Nana, I shook off the thought and looked back at Nana. A soft smile spread across my face without me even realizing it. "Nana, what do you want for dinner tonight?" The second food was mentioned. Nana perked right up. Her little feet kicked back and forth. She tipped her face up, eyes sparkling as she looked at me. Sweet and sour ribs. Nana wants sweet and sour ribs. Her cuteness cracked me up. I reached over and gently tapped her little nose. "You little foodie. All right, sweet and sour ribs it is for dinner." Then I turned to Mia a little awkwardly. "So, Mia, is there anything you feel like having?" Mia answered in the same even tone. "Anything is fine. Also, you don't need to call me Miss Mia. Can I just call you Mia then?" Saying it out loud made me a little nervous. I had never actually dated anyone growing up. I had no idea how to act around someone I liked. It wasn't like I could treat my future wife like a roommate. Mia's eyelashes gave the tiniest flutter, and she let out a soft hum, which was basically as good as a yes. We pulled up to the apartment before long. "I need to grab some groceries. You can take Nana up first." Before Mia could even respond, Nana beat her to it. "Daddy, Nana wants to come too." I laughed and ruffled her little head. "Be good, Nana. Daddy will be right back." Nana didn't say anything back. She just looked up at Mia and gave her hand a little shake, with the most pitiful look on her face. Mia had absolutely no defense against that. She didn't even think before she said, Come along then. It's not like we're in a rush. Yay! Mommy, give me a kiss. Mia laughed helplessly and pressed a kiss to Nana's little cheek. I gave a small cough and said, let's go. I led the way through the market with Nana and Mia in tow, weaving between the vendor stalls like I'd done it 100 times. Mia had clearly never set foot in a place like this. She stayed close by my side, looking a little lost. It never once occurred to her that a CEO of all people would ever find herself with nothing to contribute. Nana, on the other hand, was full of questions about everything, and I patiently answered every single one. Then I steered them into a nearby store. Why are we going in here? Mia asked with a puzzled look. To pick up some clothes for Nana, of course. What's she going to wear after her bath tonight? At that, Mia let out a small smile. She hadn't expected this guy to be so thoughtful. Nana spotted some cute clothes. Her eyes lit up immediately, and she tugged us straight toward them. It wasn't long before she zeroed in on a little bunny pajama set. I took a look and thought it was pretty adorable too. Then I checked the price tag and nearly choked. $100 for a pair of kids' pajamas. My entire outfit put together didn't even cost that much. Nana didn't even glance at me. She turned straight to Mia with her most irresistible pout. Mommy Nana wants to be a little bunny. Mia smiled and took the pajamas off the rack, holding them up against Nana to check the size. Then picked out a bigger set for herself, handed it to me without even looking at the price. I took the pajamas and honestly, living as a kept man under a CEO, was not feeling as hard to get used to as I thought. After that, we grabbed some daily essentials and a few toys, then finally headed back home. When we got to the front door, a brand new door had already been installed. I stared at the sleek new brown smart door and felt a jolt of surprise. That thing must have cost a fortune. Wait a second. If she basically demolished my door, doesn't that mean I basically got a free renovation out of it? That thought put the biggest grin on my face. Mia's brow furrowed slightly. This husband of hers might genuinely be a little slow. It's just a door. Before she could say anything, Assistant Chen stepped forward. Ms. Mia, the door is all set. Just needs your fingerprints registered. Mia gave a small nod and gestured for us to go ahead. I held Nana while we both scanned in. Then Mia stepped up beside us and added her own fingerprint without missing a beat. I have work. I won't always be able to watch Nana, so I'll bring her over when I need to. I didn't say anything about it. She was Nana's mom after all, and I still had school on top of everything else. Not exactly a lot of free time to watch a kid. So it made sense that Mia would pick up more of that, seeing that I didn't object. Mia quietly exhaled, then turned to Assistant Chen. Have the door charges billed to my personal account, then have the driver take you home. Assistant Chen smiled knowingly and nodded. Mia walked her out and pulled the door shut behind her. I carried the groceries into the kitchen and got started on dinner. Nana, meanwhile, ran out to the balcony and dragged the dog back inside. Mia stood in the entryway watching all of this and felt something quietly warm rise up inside her. It was the first time in her life she had ever felt what home was supposed to feel like. It almost didn't feel real, like a dream that would dissolve the next second. Mommy, come play with me, Nana called out sweetly to Mia just then. Mia smiled and the two of them sat down on the floor to build blocks together, hearing the laughter drifting from the living room. I peeked out curious and turned to find Nana sprawled in Mia's lap, being her most clingy self. And the last of the evening light was spilling right over Mia, wrapping her in this soft golden glow. She looked nothing like the cold, reserved person from before. Something about her had completely softened, a genuine smile on her face. It was such a warm scene that I just stood there staring without realizing it. Mia looked up and caught me, standing there in my black apron. Staring at her like an absolute fool, her smile shifted into something unreadable. Just how desperate was he to have fallen for someone like her? I snapped out of it looking embarrassed, and spun back around to rewash the vegetables I had already washed, pretending to be very busy. Mia let out a quiet laugh. About half an hour later, I carried out the last dish and set it on the table. Dinner's ready. The second they heard that Nana and Mia were done playing, they jumped up and rushed to the dining room. Watching them both come running toward me, I felt this little swell of pride. All that work in the kitchen, and it felt like it had all been building to exactly this moment. Nana scrambled up into her chair, swinging her little legs as she waited for the food. Mia spoke up then. Nana, come wash your hands first. Nana puffed out her cheeks and looked at me for backup. Daddy, Nana's hungry. But before I could get a single word out, Mia's expression turned serious. Nana. I immediately shifted my attention toward the dog in the living room and muttered to myself, oh shoot, I forgot to feed the dog. Mochi, I called out, heading toward the living room. Nana pouted, but dragged herself off the chair very reluctantly and followed Mia to wash hands in the kitchen. I finished filling the dog bowl and came back to the table, just about to sit down and eat, when a pointed look came flying my way. I froze with my chopsticks midair, got the message immediately, stood back up and headed to the kitchen to wash my hands. Mia shook her head. Now she knew exactly where Nana picked up that bad habit. After washing up and coming back to the table, Nana had clearly been waiting on the edge of her seat. She confidently scooped up a piece of sweet and sour rib, dropped it into her bowl, and went at it like she hadn't eaten in days. Mia watched and let out a small laugh, then helped herself to a rib. She had expected the cooking to be just okay, but it was surprisingly good, honestly on par with some restaurant chefs. Didn't know you had skills like this. She looked over at me, was about to say something nice, but found me already buried in my food. My full bowl was already halfway gone. Now she understood exactly why these two were father and daughter. The way Nana ate was basically just a tiny version of me, and it gave Mia a little headache. It seemed like Nana had inherited every bit of herself from her father, except for that face. There's no way. Her daughter was too cute to end up as clueless as her dad. With that thought, she set her bowl down. Nana and I both looked up at Mia confused. Mia's voice took on a slightly firmer tone. Slow down, nobody's going to steal your food. Nana and I looked at each other, and both burst out laughing for no real reason. I rubbed the back of my neck and explained, just got out of high school, still adjusting to normal life. I'll work on it, I promise. Mia sighed and pressed a hand to her forehead. Somehow she felt like she hadn't just gained a daughter, she had gained a son too. She didn't push it any further though, and just kept eating. With Mia's gentle guidance, the two of them actually ate like civilized human beings for once. They were done eating in no time, and the food really had turned out well. Nana managed a solid half bowl, and Mia broke her own record at a bowl and a half. She didn't usually eat much. Even when she was starving, she'd barely finish half a bowl. But tonight she finished a full bowl, which surprised even herself. Afterward, she settled into the living room with Nana to relax, while I handled the dishes in the kitchen. Knocked it out in about 3 minutes, put everything away, dried my hands and walked back out. Glanced at the clock on the wall. Only 8:10. I looked over at Mia and asked, "Mia, it's still early. Want to come take the dog for a walk? Obviously no pressure if you're busy. Nana and I can just..." Before I could even finish, Mia cut in. "Sure, could use the walk after all that food." I hadn't expected her to say yes just like that. I stood there for a moment, then grabbed the leash from the entryway cabinet and clipped it onto Nai Long, who was already sitting by the door wagging his tail. Nai came trotting over on her little legs and looked up at me, eyes sparkling. "Daddy, are we going to walk Nai Long?" "Yep, want to come along?" Nai nodded hard, and reached up to take Shen Mengxi's hand on her own. Shen Mengxi looked down at that tiny hand slipping into hers, and felt a warmth spread through her chest. She quietly squeezed back a little tighter. The three of us plus one dog headed out of the building and took the elevator down. A cool breeze drifted off the river in the evening air. I walked with Nai in one hand, and Nai Long's leash in the other. Nai Long happily sniffed along the grass at the edge of the path. The river breeze lifted strands of Shen Mengxi's hair as she glanced sideways at Nai, hopping and skipping along beside me. The corners of her mouth curved up softly. A night like this kind of company made the tension she always carried in her shoulders quietly dissolve. It felt like they really were just an ordinary family of three, enjoying a leisurely evening stroll after dinner. About half an hour and Nai's steps started to drag. She tugged at my pant leg, her tiny voice thick with sleepiness. "Daddy, Nai can't walk anymore." I smiled and bent down. "Want Daddy to carry you on his back, yes?" Nai immediately threw her little arms out with delight. I lifted her up easily and settled her onto my back, giving her little bottom a firm hold. Shen Mengxi saw this, and naturally reached over and took Nai Long's leash from my hand, quietly walking alongside us. When we got back to the building, Nai Long seemed worn out too. He padded obediently into the elevator without any fuss, and we all went inside. Shen Mengxi spoke softly to Nai, who was nearly asleep on my back. "Nai, shall we go take a bath?" Nai mumbled a drowsy yes, and Shen Mengxi carried her off toward the bathroom. The sound of running water soon floated out from inside, along with the cheerful chatter of mother and daughter. "Mommy looks so many bubbles for you before long." Nai's little eyelids were already fighting to stay open. She let out the most delicate little yawn, her head nodding forward, clearly running on empty. Shen Mengxi watched her daughter's adorably drowsy little face and couldn't help but smile with the softest kind of warmth. She wrapped Nai up completely in a big bath towel and carried her out of the bathroom. Nai was bundled up like a little cocoon, barely hanging onto consciousness. I spoke up, "It's getting late. Why don't we just let Nai sleep over with me tonight?" Before Shen Mengxi could answer, Nai suddenly opened her half-closed eyes like a second wind had found her. Her voice all stuffed with sleepiness, she lit up and said, "Nai gets to sleep with Mommy and Daddy." The moment she said that, the air in the room shifted into something quietly awkward. My ears went warm and my eyes instinctively drifted somewhere else. Shen Mengxi's arms tightened slightly around her daughter as a faint pink flush crept across her face. She gave a soft little cough and gave the smallest nod. Without turning it down, she carried Nai into the bedroom with me. The room wasn't large, but it was neat and tidy. A faint hint of soap lingered in the air. She changed Nai into the new little tiger pajamas she had bought, then laid her down on the bed. The little one was thrilled and rolled back and forth happily for a bit, but ran out of energy within minutes. I sat down on the edge of the bed and gently patted her little tummy. Shen Mengxi watched my slightly clumsy movements, and her expression softened. Neither of us said a word. We just quietly watched Nai together. It wasn't long before Nai had drifted fully into sleep, breathing slow and steady. I stopped patting and carefully drew my hand back. We exchanged a glance and crept out of the room without making a sound. We sat down on the couch. Neither of us said anything for a moment. There was something almost ordinary about it, like a couple sharing a quiet moment after their child falls asleep. Just then, 3 sharp knocks at the door cut through the silence. I snapped to attention and immediately knew who it was. I jumped up and opened the door quickly. Mu Yulu's eyes swept over the brand new door, and she asked, "Why'd you swap the door out?" My mind instantly flashed back to the kick Shen Mengxi had landed on it that afternoon. I forced a stiff laugh. The old one had some issues. Figured I'd just get a new one while I was at it. Mu Yulu didn't think too hard about it. She walked straight into the apartment and immediately spotted Shen Mengxi sitting on the couch. She didn't look particularly surprised as Nai asleep. Shen Mengxi and I nodded at the same time. Mu Yulu came and sat down and pulled a folder straight out of her bag and handed it to me. I opened it. It was a paternity test report clearly confirming that Nai and I were a biological match. Seeing those results, I wasn't the least bit surprised. Some things you feel in your bones before any test confirms them. Shen Mengxi also glanced at the report. She had already known the outcome, but something about seeing it written out still stirred something in her. Mu Yulu looked between us with an expression somewhere between helpless and still not quite believing it. So Nai really did come from the future. I nodded. At this point, there's really no other explanation that makes any sense. Mu Yulu took a slow breath. She had been mentally preparing herself for a while, but it still felt completely unreal. "So what are you two planning to do now?" I barely even had to think. Before blurting out, "We raise her, obviously." "What else would we do?" Shen Mengxi's eyes lit up. She looked over at me and nodded in agreement right away. Mu Yulu let out a sigh. "I guess that's the only option, really. Are you gonna tell Mom and Dad?" "No way, absolutely not. You know how Mom is. You know exactly how she gets. She would never believe some story about a daughter from the future. She'd be 100% convinced I knocked someone up and then abandoned them. If she found out about this, she'd break all 3 of my legs." Sitting right next to me, Shen Mengxi heard every word, and a clear picture of her old teacher immediately popped into her head. She burst out laughing despite herself. That woman's temper really hadn't changed one bit, but then a quiet worry crept in. If her teacher ever found out that her former student had gone and stolen her son away, Would she end up getting her legs broken too? That thought sent a small shiver right through her. I looked over at Shen Mengxi, confused, not sure what she found funny. Mu Yulu looked at her hopeless little brother and didn't know whether to laugh or be annoyed. All right. I'll keep this between us, but this kind of thing isn't going to stay hidden forever. Just be ready, figure out your story before it comes out. She gave us both a long, meaningful look as she got up to leave. All right, you two get some rest. She sighed quietly to herself. Her little brother was done for. She knew him better than anyone. A powerhouse like Shen Mengxi was going to have him completely wrapped around her finger. Part of her had wanted to warn me to stay away from Shen Mengxi, but since we ended up together in the future, it wasn't really her place to interfere. Little bro, you're on your own with this one. The door closed and it was just the two of us standing in the entryway. We were suddenly very aware of each other's presence in the quiet, and the moment turned a little awkward. Shen Mengxi hesitated a moment, then asked softly, "Do I seem at all familiar to you?" I blinked, and looked at her with a completely blank expression. What do you mean? Seeing how genuinely clueless I looked, Shen Mengxi felt a flicker of something pass through her eyes that she quickly buried. She shook her head lightly and let it go. She knew I had completely forgotten whatever happened between us when we were kids, so she changed the subject. It's getting late, I should head back. I'll come by tomorrow morning to see Nai Nai. I nodded automatically, then caught myself and said, "It's so late though. Let me walk you home." "It's not safe going by yourself." Shen Mengxi raised an eyebrow. "You want to walk me home? What if Nai Nai wakes up?" I went quiet. She had a point I hadn't thought of. Shen Mengxi smiled softly. "It's fine. Go back inside, I'll be okay on my own." Hearing that a tiny flicker of disappointment crossed my face before I could catch it, I gave a quiet little huff. Shen Mengxi caught that small shift in my expression, and a barely there smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. After washing up, I headed back to the bedroom and found Nai Nai sound asleep on the bed, her little body curled up small with the sweetest smile still resting on her lips. My whole heart just melted. I slipped in quietly onto the other side of the bed, doing my best not to make a sound on the other side of the city. Shen Mengxi returned to her sprawling top-floor apartment overlooking the water. Every light in the place was on, but the space felt enormous and empty and strangely cold. An unexplainable loneliness washed over her out of nowhere. Nai Nai's sleeping little face drifted into her mind unbidden, and so did that look of quiet disappointment on mine. Thinking about it, she couldn't help the way her lips curved up just a little. The next morning, Mia woke up early, after a quick wash and brush. She swung by a breakfast shop and grabbed some steamed buns and soy milk to go, then drove straight over to the apartment. She walked up carrying the bag of food, scanned her fingerprint, and let herself right in. The place was completely quiet. Mia stood in the entryway and looked around the living room. No sign of me, and no sign of that tiny little figure either. Obviously, the two of us were still in bed sleeping in. She let out a helpless smile. Out of habit, she reached for the shoe cabinet, and then realized there were no slippers here for her. Last night, I had remembered to buy Nana clothes and slippers, but it never even crossed my mind that Mia needed a pair too. She couldn't quite put her finger on why. But something about that stung a little. She quickly shook it off though, set the breakfast down on the dining table, and pulled out her phone to call her assistant. "I'm working from home today. Bring my laptop over when you get a chance." Her assistant on the other end of the line acknowledged it. "Got it, Ms. Mia, and also bring me a pair of women's house slippers." She hung up. Mia's gaze drifted toward the closed bedroom door. She walked over toward it, then suddenly stopped herself. Would it be weird to just walk in like that? He was still asleep in there after all. But then she thought about it. She was Nana's mom. Wasn't it perfectly natural for her to go check on her own kid? With that settled in her mind, she decided not to knock. She turned the handle and walked right in. Two figures were sprawled across the bed in every direction. Nana had somehow ended up sleeping directly on top of the pillow, one chubby little foot planted squarely on my face, while I was completely spread eagle, taking up a solid 2/3 of the bed. Mia's lips curved up ever so slightly. A flicker of exasperation crossed her face, mixed with something unexpectedly soft. She leaned down and carefully lifted Nana's little foot off my face, then gently smoothed away the messy strands of hair across her forehead. Her fingertips grazed her daughter's soft little cheek, and she couldn't help but give it a tiny squeeze. Something inside her went completely to mush. She heard herself whisper softly, "Look at the way you sleep. No wonder Mom and Dad won't let you share the bed." Nana seemed to feel the gentle pressure on her cheek, and groggily blinked her eyes open. Still half asleep and barely focused, she looked up and found Mia right there inches from her face. She blinked for a second. Then her little bottom lip started to quiver, full of sleepy grumpiness. She stretched her tiny arms out. "Mommy? Hug? Want a hug?" Her little voice came out soft and clingy. Mia's heart melted on the spot. She leaned down and scooped the little one right into her arms, then pressed a kiss right onto Nana's rosy little cheek, which immediately set her off into a burst of giggles. Nana wrapped her little arms around Mia's neck and nuzzled her face against hers. "Mommy," her sweet little voice kept calling out, "Mommy." And every single time it made Mia's heart absolutely soar. It was a feeling she had never known before, a deep, quiet warmth spreading through her. I was woken up by all the commotion. I rubbed my sleepy eyes and found Mia sitting on the edge of the bed holding Nana. The two of them cuddled up together. Mia seemed different today, softer somehow. There was a warmth about her, like a gentle and refined older sister. I just kind of blanked for a second. Man, if I could marry someone like that, that would be the dream. Oh wait, she is the mother of my kid. Never mind then. Hey, why are you here so early? Mia raised an eyebrow and shot back. It's past 8 o'clock. You call that early? Hearing that number? I lunged for my phone and checked. The screen read 8:40 in big bold numbers. Oh crap, I blurted out before I could stop myself. "I'm gonna be late for class." I yelped and threw off the covers and jumped out of bed. No time for anything else. I made a beeline for the bathroom at full speed. A chaotic flurry of water and brushing sounds echoed out. Nana jumped at the noise, her little face all scrunched up. She looked at Mia with the most pitiful eyes. "Mommy, what's wrong with Daddy?" Mia let out a quiet laugh and gently patted Nana on the back, saying softly, "It's okay, Daddy's just running late for school." Nana nodded like she sort of understood. and blinked her big eyes toward the bathroom. A moment later, I burst out of the bathroom at full speed, hair still dripping, clothes a little disheveled. Clearly, there had been no time to do anything properly. But even in that state, when even thrown together like that, it didn't hurt the look one bit. If anything, it just added a certain effortless young energy. I grabbed my backpack off the floor. Nana, Daddy's gotta go. You be good and listen to Mommy, okay? Nana nodded her little head sweetly. I'll be good. Bye-bye, Daddy. She blew me a little kiss, and I completely lost it. Without even thinking, I leaned over and planted a quick kiss on her cheek, then looked up at Mia. I had something on the tip of my tongue, but the words got awkward before they came out. So I just mumbled, "Nana's in your hands." Mia watched me bolt out the door, and the smile on her face grew just a little bit wider, a faint blush creeping into her cheeks. She then got Nana washed up and finally sat down for breakfast. Nana was perched in her little chair, eyes fixed on the steaming buns and warm soy milk on the table, a tiny drool starting to form at the corner of her mouth. Mia took one look at her and gave her little nose a playful tap. "You little foodie, go ahead and eat." Nana grabbed a bun without hesitation and started taking tiny, eager bites. Mia watched her, heart absolutely full of warmth and contentment. Meanwhile, I sprinted across campus, huffing and puffing as I reached the back door of the lecture hall. The room was already packed with students, and up at the front stood a white-haired professor. My stomach sank. I hunched over and tried to sneak in through the back. But the second I cracked the door open, a voice rang out, old but sharp as a tack. What exactly is that student at the door trying to pull? The entire room turned and stared right at me. I froze and slowly raised my head. Right into the professor's piercing gaze, I was done for. The old professor adjusted his reading glasses, looked me up and down and asked, "What's your name?" I grimaced, Marcus, hearing that. The professor's expression shifted into something like a knowing smile. Ah, the top scorer on this year's college entrance exam. I got even more awkward, just let out a couple of nervous laughs and kept my mouth shut. The professor looked at me for a moment, his smile deepening, then said unhurriedly, "I remember when your parents took my class. They never once dared to be late." That hit me like a ton of bricks. My own parents had been students of this professor, and just as I was still processing that, the professor added another line just as casually. "Looks like I'll be giving your mother a call tonight to ask how exactly she's been raising you. All right then. Go find a seat." I was sweating buckets. Great. Just great. This is really going places. I spotted my buddy Kevin in the corner making faces at me and dragged myself over. Dropping into the empty seat next to him, he immediately leaned over and lowered his voice, grinning ear to ear. "Dude, you've got guts, I'll give you that. First week of the semester and you're already skipping Professor Shu's class." I shot him a look, and without a word grabbed the bun sitting on his desk and shoved it in my mouth. "Wait, hold on, what happened to you?" Kevin asked with exaggerated curiosity. "Don't tell me you saw Mia yesterday and totally lost it. Went home to practice your moves and overdid it." I stared at him like he was the dumbest person alive. Kevin didn't even flinch, just laughed it off. "Okay, seriously though, what could possibly make the class genius show up late?" I was quiet for a moment, then dropped my voice. "You're not entirely wrong. It actually does have something to do with Mia." "No way!" Kevin's eyes nearly popped out of his head, almost dropped his pen on the floor. "Don't tell me you're already being kept by her. Listen, man, we may be broke, but we've still got our pride. Unless she's talking at least 10 grand a month. Otherwise, don't even..." I stared at him blankly. "It's nothing like that. Here's the thing. Her and I have a 4-year-old daughter together. Last night we were both putting her to bed. I forgot to set my alarm and slept right through it." Kevin's jaw dropped. He just stared for a solid 3 seconds, then burst out laughing like I had just told the funniest joke he'd ever heard. He picked up the last bun sitting on the desk and stuffed it straight into my mouth. "All right, bro, I get it. You've been single so long your daydreams are getting out of hand. A 4-year-old daughter. Come on, man, wake up." I chewed the bun and just kind of shrugged. Believe it or don't, Kevin obviously wasn't buying it. If this guy seriously had a kid with Mia, then Kevin must be a trust fund kid. He switched gears. "Oh, hey, did Jenny actually confess to you yesterday?" I nodded. "Yeah, I turned her down." "Let's go." Kevin lit up immediately, threw his arm around my shoulder with a big grin. "I knew it. That's exactly why you're my best friend." He still didn't get what I meant. Up at the front, Professor Shu adjusted his reading glasses and zeroed in on our direction with laser precision. "Are you two having a nice little chat back there? Why don't you both come up to the front and share your thoughts with the rest of the class?" Every head in the room snapped toward us at once. Kevin and I both immediately hunched down, heads dropping, wishing we could just disappear into our textbooks for the rest of class. Neither of us dared to move a muscle, just sitting there suffering. When the bell finally rang, Kevin and I both let out a massive sigh of relief at the same moment, the look on our faces like we had just survived a natural disaster. But before we could fully exhale, "Marcus, come by my office for a moment." Professor Shu tucked his textbook under his arm and looked at me calmly. "Wonderful. Looks like I won't be going home for a while." Kevin blinked, then immediately put on the most dramatic, grief-stricken face. He reached over and gave my shoulder a solemn pat, dabbing at completely non-existent tears. "Go in peace, brother. I'll make sure every last dollar on your meal card gets put to good use." I pushed his hand away with a deadpan look, and reluctantly followed Professor Shu toward the office. Walking out of Professor Shu's office, I found out he actually knew my grandfather. What I didn't know was that the second I left, he called my mom and ratted me out. The moment Kevin spotted me coming out, he rushed over. "Dude, finally. I thought you were gone forever. Did the professor destroy you?" I shook my head. "Nah, I'm good." Professor Shu is actually a pretty cool guy. Turns out he and my grandpa go way back. Kevin blinked. "Wait, what? You've got that kind of connection going for you." "All right, let's get out of here." We had barely taken a few steps when 2 girls came walking straight toward us, one in a white sundress. That made her skin look almost luminous. The other in a sleek black outfit that turned heads. Kevin's eyes practically glazed over, while I just glanced once and moved on without much interest. Don't get me wrong, they were both attractive, but they had nothing on my Mia. "All right, stop staring, let's go." "Man, you have zero taste." Kevin shot me a look. Those two are literally the most talked about girls in the arts department. The one in white is Chloe, and the one in black is Serena. But before Kevin could even finish, I was already way ahead of him. I really had zero interest in any of that. All I wanted was to get home and see Nana, wondering what she was up to, whether she was being good for her mom, and whether she was missing her dad. Kevin noticed I was walking away without looking back, and jogged to catch up. Just as we passed by the two girls, the one in the white sundress slowed her steps almost imperceptibly. Her gaze landed on my retreating figure. Her brows drew together slightly, and something like recognition flickered in her eyes. It's him, Chloe remembered clearly, just yesterday morning. She had seen Mia walking a little ways behind this guy, with a perfectly adorable little girl in her arms, and that little girl looked remarkably like Mia. So what exactly was the connection between them? Hey Chloe, Earth to Chloe, you totally zoned out. Serena waved a hand in front of her face. Nothing. Chloe hesitated for a second, then asked casually, like it was no big deal,
Do you know that guy who just walked by? He looks kind of familiar to me.
Serena looked in the direction she gestured, only catching our backs as we disappeared. Well, well, well. The Ice Queen herself. Has she finally developed a crush? On a freshman, no less. Oh, stop it. Chloe gave her a look. I just feel like I've seen him somewhere before. Serena grinned. Well, when a guy's that good looking, he tends to look familiar. Okay, fine, I'll stop teasing. His name's Marcus, brand new freshman, and the top scorer on this year's college entrance exam. Chloe kept her eyes on my retreating figure, her gaze lingering far longer than she realized. Lost in thought, Serena looked at her and couldn't help herself. He's long gone and you're still staring. Your brain already followed him out. Chloe snapped out of it, a barely noticeable flush crossing her face. She gave a small shake of her head and turned to leave. Hey, wait, weren't we here to find someone? Serena grabbed her arm, confused. Chloe's lips curved into a small smile. Already found him. Serena's eyes went wide. Found him. Don't tell me you came here specifically to track down that Marcus guy. Chloe didn't answer directly, just smiled, and headed off in the other direction. Wait, what? Did you actually fall for him? Back on our end, Kevin nudged my shoulder. Hey Marcus, that Chloe girl kept looking over at us. Based on my decade of reading romance novels, she's definitely into you. I rolled my eyes. Give me a break. Probably just because I'm the top scorer this year. New students get a lot of attention. She was just curious. Kevin made a face, and changed the subject. Hey, no classes this afternoon. Wanna hit up the gaming cafe? Nah, I gotta get home. I've got a wife and kid waiting on me like it was time for games. Kevin didn't think too much of it. Gave me a wave and headed off. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Nana was rolling around on the floor with the fluffy dog. Not far away on the couch, Mia was working through emails on her laptop. Her soft gaze drifting every now and then to her daughter playing on the floor, a gentle smile on her lips. Mommy. Nana suddenly looked up, asking in her sweet little voice, when is Daddy coming home? Nana's hungry. Mia glanced at her watch. It was almost noon, and I still wasn't back. She instinctively reached for her phone on the coffee table, wanting to text me and ask if I'd be home for lunch, but then she stopped. She realized she hadn't saved my number yet. Mia pressed her fingers to her temple. Looks like she was going to have to figure out lunch herself. She closed the laptop and headed toward the kitchen. Mommy's going to cook. The moment Nana saw her mom moving toward the kitchen, she flashed back to the noodles from yesterday. A flicker of barely hidden panic crossed her big round eyes. She scrambled up off the rug, toddled over on her little legs and grabbed the edge of Mia's shirt. Mommy, Nana's not that hungry. Nana can wait a little longer for Daddy. Mia looked down at her daughter's sweet, considerate little face and felt a warm rush in her chest. Thinking Nana was worried about her and didn't want her to go to the trouble, she gently smoothed down Nana's little cowlick. Sweet girl. Daddy might still be busy. Mommy can have food ready in no time. Why don't you go play with Mochi for a bit? Watching her mom disappear into the kitchen, Nana let out a tiny sigh, her little brow furrowing. Nana's tummy is doomed. Mia opened the fridge, stared at a shelf full of ingredients she didn't recognize, and quietly closed it again. She tried the cabinet next to it, and her eyes landed on a packet of dried noodles tucked in the corner. Her face lit up. She grabbed the noodles, filled a pot, and got the stove going, all in one smooth motion, and before long, a big pot of steaming plain noodles was ready. Mia carefully carried it out and set it on the table. Nana, come eat. Nana climbed into her chair, looked down at the completely plain noodles in her bowl, and her little brow furrowed again. She pressed her lips together and made no move to pick up her spoon. Mia served herself a bowl too, and noticed Nana still hadn't touched hers. Why aren't you eating just then? The front door swung open, and I walked in with a couple grocery bags. Hey, I'm home. Stopped to grab some groceries. Sorry I'm a little late, Daddy. Nana's eyes lit up instantly to when she slid right off her chair, toddled over on her little legs and threw her arms around me, face tilted up with a big bright voice, calling out Daddy again, and my heart just melted on the spot. I bent down and scooped her up with one arm. Did you listen to Mommy today? Did you miss Daddy? Nana planted a big enthusiastic kiss on my cheek, and said in her little voice, Nana was so well behaved today. Watching the father-daughter moment unfold by the door, a quiet smile crossed Mia's face. I figured you weren't coming back for lunch, so I just threw together some noodles. I glanced at the bowl on the table and nodded. No worries. Noodles are fine. I'll cook the groceries for dinner. I set Nana down gently, grabbed the grocery bags and headed to the kitchen, sorting the vegetables and meat into the fridge, then came back to the table, loaded up a big bowl of noodles and sat down to eat. Nana watched me lift the noodles with my chopsticks, her big eyes full of something like guilt. She reached out and tugged my sleeve gently, voice a little muffled. Daddy, I'm sorry. I paused mid-bite and looked at her confused, then glanced over at Mia, who looked just as puzzled. Neither of us knew where that was coming from. Nana, why are you apologizing to Daddy? Nana stared down at her own bowl without saying a word. I was scratching my head, and then the next second it all clicked. I chewed the bland, slightly too firm noodle and swallowed. Nana, Daddy forgives you. But promise Daddy one thing. Next time, even if you're starving, do not let Mommy cook, okay? Nana nodded her little head very seriously. Mia's brow furrowed slightly. She picked up her chopsticks and tried a small bite of the noodles. The flavor was pretty bland, and the noodles were a bit stiff, but it wasn't like they were inedible. She looked at me less than impressed. Didn't you used to eat anything when you were little? When did you get so picky? Then it hit her all at once. Earlier, Nana had tugged at her and said she wasn't hungry. Trying to hold her back from going into the kitchen, turns out it wasn't concern for her. Nana just straight up did not want to eat what she made. And here she had actually been touched by the little rascal, saying she'd wait for Daddy, while her real agenda was crystal clear. Mia still wasn't ready to let it go. She looked at me and asked, "Was it really that bad?" I looked at her slightly defensive expression, and my survival instincts kicked in hard. I shook my head. Not bad exactly, it just leaves a lot of room to grow. Mia suddenly burst out laughing at how carefully I was tiptoeing around it. I'm honestly not much of a cook. It's fine. I'll handle the cooking from now on. I'll make sure you two eat well. Nana had been listening with both ears perked up the moment she heard I'd be cooking. Her eyes lit up like two little stars. She immediately sat up straight, patted the same little tummy she had claimed wasn't hungry 5 minutes ago, and said in her sweetest voice, "Daddy, Nana's hungry? All right, Daddy's going to cook right now." I turned and headed into the kitchen. Mia watched me moving around busily through the doorway and felt the corners of her mouth lift on their own. The sound of oil hitting the pan crackled from the kitchen, and the smell of something delicious started drifting into the living room. Nana sniffed hard, her little mouth watering, her whole face basically screaming, "I want that." Mia looked at her little foodie daughter, and with the aroma growing more irresistible by the second, found her own appetite waking up too. Before long, I came out of the kitchen with the last dish. "Food's ready." Nana took one look at the spread on the table, eyes sparkling, and immediately climbed into her chair herself, grabbed her little spoon, and sat there barely containing herself. Mia picked up a bite of the tomato and egg stir-fry. The egg was silky and tender, the tomato sweet and tangy, perfectly balanced. She tried the minced pork and eggplant next. The eggplant was soft and soaked through with flavor. The kind of thing you'd want to eat with 3 bowls of rice. She looked over at me with genuine surprise. "Have you always been this good at cooking?" I was busy putting food in Nana's bowl. Looked up at the question, with just a hint of pride. "Pretty decent, I guess. Practice makes perfect." I paused, like something had just come back to me. I actually never used to cook at all. But there was this one experience when I was a kid that I will never forget. Mia's curiosity was instantly written all over her face. Before she could even ask, I kept going. When I was little, my parents went to take care of my grandpa, and my sister was off at school. So my mom found a girl to babysit me, and I had to eat whatever she cooked. At that point, my face did something involuntary, a look of pure horror and disgust. The food was genuinely beyond description. I can still taste it to this day. After that, I made a decision. I grabbed my dad and made him teach me everything. I glanced over at Mia, and added with a half-joking grin, "Come to think of it, that babysitter's cooking was honestly on the same level as yours." Mia's smile went just slightly rigid. The terrible cooking he was describing. Wasn't that her? She remembered it was her very first time trying to cook back then. A total disaster. She thought it was noodles or maybe fried rice. The details were fuzzy, but she was pretty sure it hadn't tasted great, so this legendary babysitter whose cooking traumatized him had been her all along. Mengshi felt her cheeks go warm, and a feeling she couldn't quite name stirred somewhere deep inside her. She forced out a slightly stiff smile. "So is my mom's cooking really that bad?" She meant my mom, her future mother-in-law. Before I could even get a word in, Nai shot her little spoon straight up in the air. "Grandma's cooking is so bad. Last time we went to Grandma's house, she made braised pork, and it was so dark and tough that Nai couldn't even chew it." The little one nodded her head vigorously the whole time she was talking with the most serious expression on her face. I looked at my daughter, trying not to laugh, while Shen Mengshi quietly lowered her head and focused on her food. After we finished eating, I turned to Shen Mengshi and said, "I don't have class this afternoon. If you've got stuff to take care of, I can just hang out with Nai on my own." "Yay, Nai wants to play with Daddy." Nai came rushing over and threw herself at my legs, eyes sparkling bright. I smiled and ruffled Nai's hair, then bent down and scooped her up. Shen Mengshi heard this, and her fingers paused over the keyboard. Her eyes flickered toward me with a hint of suspicion. For some reason, she thought of the girl who had confessed to me the day before. That thought left her feeling inexplicably annoyed, and her tone came out flat. "Are you trying to get rid of me?" My smile faltered for a beat. "No, I'm not. You just looked pretty busy." Before I could finish, Shen Mengshi cut me off. "Oh, really? I figured you wanted me out of the way, so you could go on a date with that girl who confessed to you yesterday." Right away, I pictured it. Zhang Yingying's eyes went wide, and she stared at Shen Mengshi in total disbelief. "How did you know about that?" Shen Mengshi suddenly remembered that she had followed me around with Nai the day before, and instantly lost some of her nerve. She looked away, and said with an awkward edge in her voice, "You don't need to know how I found out." She paused for a moment, then looked back at me. Her expression had settled back into its usual calm, and she said coolly, "I normally wouldn't stick my nose in your personal life, but with Nai here right now, I need you to be mindful of that. While Nai is with us, I'd rather you not get into any romantic situations." I quickly explained. "That girl yesterday is my class president. She confessed to me, and I was going to turn her down, but she ran off before I could even say anything. I never got the chance to reject her, and honestly, I wasn't planning on dating anyone to begin with. Now that I have Nai, that's even less of a possibility." I paused for a second. "I said what I said earlier because you looked like you were swamped with work. I thought you might appreciate the space. I wasn't trying to push you out." Hearing my explanation, that nagging irritation Shen Mengshi had been carrying quietly faded away. Oh, so that's what it was. He had never even considered accepting that girl's confession, and dating someone was the last thing on his mind. Realizing she had completely misread the situation, Shen Mengshi felt her cheeks heat up on their own. She felt genuinely embarrassed because in hindsight, the things she had said did sound kind of unreasonable. Thinking back on it now, even she was a little stunned that those words had actually come out of her mouth. Just as Shen Mengshi was sitting in that awkwardness, Her phone rang from the table beside her and she let out a quiet breath of relief. She picked up right away it was Assistant Chen, and she slipped back into her CEO mode without missing a beat. Got it? I'm heading over now. She hung up and stood, grabbed her bag, then looked over at me and Nai. Something came up at the office. I need to go in for a meeting. She bent down and wrapped her arms around Nai's soft little body. Be good for daddy, okay, Nai? Mommy will be back soon. Nai will be super good for daddy, Shen. Mengxi's gaze lingered on my face, like she had something she wanted to say, but in the end she just pressed her lips together and let it go. Then she left the apartment at a slightly hurried pace. I watched her figure disappear behind the door, a puzzled look crossing my face. Her reaction just now made it clear she had gotten the wrong idea about something, but I really didn't think I had said anything out of line. How had she managed to take it that way? 2.5 hours later, Shen Mengxi and Assistant Chen stepped out of the conference room one after the other. Compile the key points from the meeting and get them sent to each department head this afternoon. Yes, Ms. Shen. Assistant Chen set his documents down on the desk and turned to leave, but Shen Mengxi suddenly called out to stop him. Her eyes drifted slightly to the side, avoiding his gaze as she asked, "So I have this friend, and she apparently misunderstood something about her husband, and then realized later she had been overthinking it. Now things feel kind of awkward between them, and she doesn't know how to smooth things over." By the time she got to that part, her ears were noticeably red and Assistant Chen was struggling not to laugh. He had worked alongside her for years, and he genuinely could not think of a single friend she had. So this friend was obviously her. With that in mind, he carefully ventured, "Ms. Shen, did you perhaps misunderstand your husband?" Shen Mengxi reacted like someone had stepped on her tail, and immediately shot back in a rushed tone. "It's not me, it's a friend of mine." A real, actual close friend. Shen Mengxi looked at his face as he fought to hold back his smile, and felt her ears get even hotter. "Okay, fine. You can go." Assistant Chen held his laughter together all the way to the door, but couldn't resist turning back to add one last thing. "Ms. Shen, honestly, when there's a misunderstanding between a couple, just talk it out or offer an apology. Like the old saying goes, couples might fight before bed, but by morning it's all forgotten." Shen Mengxi had to admit that made sense even if they weren't officially a couple yet. They would be someday, and she found herself imagining the scene of apologizing to me. But a second later, her mind jumped to a completely different image, of being teased mercilessly for it afterward. Absolutely not. Men take a mile when you give them an inch. She could not let herself go soft. Besides, when had Shen Mengxi ever humbled herself and apologized to anyone? She ran her fingers through her hair in frustration, and her gaze drifted down to the computer screen in front of her. Almost without thinking, she quietly typed something into the search bar. How to smooth things over after misunderstanding your partner. The search results were all over the place. Talk it out, apologize, buy them a gift and even flirt with them, or spice things up in the bedroom. By the time she got to that last one, her face had gone the color of a ripe tomato. She covered her face and skipped past all the ones making her heart race, until her eyes settled on the words, "Buy them a gift." That approach actually seemed workable. It conveyed the apology without her having to say those 3 uncomfortable words out loud. Shen Mengxi's eyes lit up a little. She liked this idea, but what to get him? She thought it over carefully, and realized just how little she actually knew about me. What did I like? What did I use on a daily basis? She had no idea. No matter how hard she thought about it, she couldn't come up with anything solid, so Shen Mengxi gave up for now. She tucked the thought away in the back of her mind and shifted her focus back to work. Meanwhile, I had spent the whole afternoon running wild at the park with Nai and Nai Long, and by the time we got home, it was already 4 o'clock. I started thinking about dinner, and wasn't sure whether Shen Mengxi was planning to come back and eat with us. I figured I'd ask, but then suddenly realized I didn't have her number. I looked over at Nai and asked her gently, "Nai, do you want to go pick Mommy up from work?" The second Nai heard she was going to pick up Mommy, she bounced straight off the couch. All the tiredness from the afternoon vanished instantly. Nai wants to go get Mommy. I smiled, watching my daughter light up like that, took her excited little hand, and we headed out of the apartment, caught a cab and rode straight to the Shen Group building. I walked into the lobby holding Nai's hand. "Excuse me, is Ms. Shen Mengxi available? I'm here to see her." The receptionist smiled politely. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" I shook my head. "No appointment. I'm a friend of Miss Shen's. My name is Mu Gei." The receptionist kept her smile perfectly in place, but her tone carried a hint of distance. "I'm sorry, sir. Without an appointment, we aren't able to let you go up." "How come we can't go up? Nai wants to see Mommy." Nai heard she couldn't go up and her little face crumpled. She tugged at the hem of my shirt, her voice clearly disappointed. I patted her on the head and explained gently, "Come on, Nai. Mommy's workplace has rules and we can't just walk in and interrupt, but once Mommy's shift ends, we'll get to see her, okay?" Nai nodded slowly, like she kind of understood, and murmured quietly, "Okay, fine. Then we'll just wait here for Mommy to get off work." At that moment, one of the more observant receptionists recognized Nai. She remembered seeing the little girl outside the building the day before, and when she connected that to this man, who claimed to be a friend of Ms. Shen's, something clicked in her mind. She didn't dare brush them off and picked up the internal phone, quickly dialing a number. "Hello, is this Assistant Chen? There's a Mr. Mu downstairs. He's got that little girl from yesterday with him and says he's looking for Ms. Shen." Assistant Chen on the other end of the line heard the name Mu and the mention of yesterday's little girl and put it together instantly. She hung up and walked straight to the CEO's office. Shen Mengxi looked up at her assistant, who seemed slightly rushed, and frowned slightly. "What's going on?" "Mrs. Shen, your husband is here with the little one. They're down in the lobby." Shen Mengxi was on her feet almost before she realized it. She came around the desk and headed straight for the door. The thought that her daughter might be waiting downstairs right now made her steps pick up on their own. Assistant Chen quickly grabbed Shen Mengxi's phone jacket and bag before hurrying after her. She was pretty sure Ms. Shen was not going to stick around the office when she saw her husband and daughter. The elevator dinged and arrived at the ground floor. The door slid open and Shen Mengxi stepped out first. Her eyes swept quickly across the lobby. Assistant Chen followed right behind. holding her jacket and bag near the entrance. She spotted two figures side by side, a tall one and a small one, just about to head out the door. Nai Shen Mengshi's heart skipped a beat, and she called out before she could stop herself. The tiny figure froze, then spun around. The moment she saw it, was Mommy Nai's whole face burst into the biggest smile. Mommy Nai's soft little voice rang out, and she let go of Daddy's hand. Her little legs going as fast as they could, pattering straight towards Shen Mengshi. Shen Mengshi moved quickly to meet her and bent down just before Nai launched herself forward, catching her perfectly. The soft little body clung tight to her, and a smile spread across her face. I walked over too, and stopped in front of them, watching the mother and daughter wrapped up in each other, my expression soft. Shen Mengshi stood up straight with Nai still in her arms. Her eyes landed on my face. The awkwardness from earlier hadn't fully lifted yet, but her voice was noticeably calmer. What brings you two here? My eyes flickered slightly as I glanced at Nai and explained. Nai was talking about wanting to come pick you up all afternoon. No, she wasn't. Nai in her arms immediately protested, shaking her head back and forth like a little bobblehead. It was Daddy who said he wanted to come pick Mommy up. Shen Mengshi's eyes shifted back to me, and she caught the flash of embarrassment that crossed my face in an instant. A warmth she couldn't quite name bubbled up inside her, and she couldn't help the corner of her mouth lifting. I had been completely called out by my own daughter, and there was nowhere to hide. The tips of my ears went pink. I cleared my throat and looked away from Shen Mengshi's amused eyes and explained, I just came to ask if you were planning to come home for dinner tonight. Shen Mengshi didn't answer right away. She just looked at the slightly flustered expression on my face, and her smile deepened a little more. Nai watched the whole thing and let out a string of giggles right there in Shen Mengshi's arms. I looked at my daughter with a helpless but amused expression, thinking to myself, this little one was definitely not on my team today. Nai immediately sensed Daddy's displeasure. She buried her face in Shen Mengshi's neck and tightened her arms around her. Whining in a pouty voice, Mommy, Daddy is glaring at me. Shen Mengshi wiped the smile off her face immediately and looked up at me, with an expression that clearly said she was not going to let anyone mess with her daughter. A few of the receptionists nearby and employees passing through had completely stopped in their tracks. They exchanged glances with each other, faces full of shock and disbelief. Was this really the same Ms. Shen who never smiled at work, whose presence alone could freeze the whole room? How had she turned into a warm and doting wife?